It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the U.S. of A. and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations. We cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Kruse.
Welcome to the show. We're going to start off with some great news. As some of you know, I'm a member of the Outdoor Writers Association of America, and every year they have an Excellence in Craft contest. And I always enter 5 or 6 categories in the radio podcast division. And I got lucky this year. I actually placed in all 5 entries that I entered. And you're going to hear 2 of those award-winning interviews today. One of them is with Nate Reeves. He's with Trout Unlimited. And he's going to tell you about a wonderful success story in Arizona. It's all about the Apache Trout and how it's making a rapid comeback. The other award-winning interview, well, it's a first place award that we received through an interview we did with Phil Borgelli, the shooting editor of Field & Stream, about the best duck loads for 2024. You know what? Those duck loads will probably be just as good this duck hunting season. In addition to these award-winning interviews, we're also going to share some new material with you. In just a few seconds, you're going to hear from Marilyn Mintz. She's the executive director of the National Bowhunting Education Foundation, providing online and in-person classes for bow hunters and crossbow hunters. And at the end of the show, you'll get to hear from John Bledsoe. He is the founder of Coangler LLC. And you can go to coangler.com or download the app, which is actually free right now. What's it all about? Well, it's meant to get people together fishing. So if you own a boat, you can offer to take people fishing, and that co-angler who goes with you can share the cost of the trip. After all, gas is expensive. Likewise, if you don't have a boat and you want to go fishing, you can request a trip and see if somebody will contact you and say, hey, come on out, let's go fishing. Again, a lot of this is about shared expenses to make things more affordable for anglers on the water, but it's also about getting people together to go fishing and maybe making some lifelong friendships while they're at it. Next up on America Outdoors Radio, it's time to visit with our first guest of the day. That would be Marilyn Bentz. She is the executive director of the National Bowhunter Education Foundation. Marilyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
If folks go to nbef.org, they're going to find all sorts of information about courses they can take. But before we get into that, let's talk about what your organization is all about.
All right. Well, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and actually we've had that designation since 1979. And we started in the 60s as a subcommittee of the National Field Archery Association called the Conservation Committee. And it was noted that a gentleman by the name of Bill Wadsworth was a part of that NFAA Conservation Committee, and he was asked to create a curriculum for bow hunters, for teaching bow hunters safety, ethics, responsibility, and then actually received a request from the state of New York to print that curriculum. So they were the first state to really use the curriculum, but it wasn't until 1979 that we spun off from the NFAA and created our own nonprofit foundation. So we've been around a little while.
Now, you offer both online and in-person classes of bow hunting education. Tell me about the in-person classes. Where are those taking place?
Well, the in-person classes were originally how the organization got started, and it would include about an 8 to 10 hour session in a classroom, and then about 4 hours as a field day. And the in-person classes go over conservation. They talk about deer anatomy, shot placement, and anatomy of other animals also, but of course the whitetail being the most prominent animal hunted. And anatomy, shot placement, and then big game recovery. In addition, they touch on survival skills. So it's a very comprehensive program. And then on the field day, they actually get to go out and experience what it might be like to follow a blood trail, experience some of the aspects of tree stand safety and safety in general.
Let's turn to the online classes. Is it covering these same topics?
It is exactly the same curriculum, and when we set the online up, we wanted that curriculum to mirror the curriculum in a textbook. And originally, when we created the original online program, it was meant to be followed by a field day. So anything that perhaps wasn't covered in depth online could then be covered in a field day and actually execute some of the principles during a field day. But of course, when COVID hit, that turned into an entirely different scenario. In-person classes were all canceled, and just about every state went to the online program or recommended that a student go to the online program in another state, which some states do allow, and take the online course. And since then, the online program has been, I'll just say, enriched to the point where it really mirrors the in-person class.
I like the fact that you take the Bowhunter education class, it only costs $30, and if a Bowhunter education card is required in your state, well, you've got it, and that's great.
Yes.
A lot of states like mine in Washington State, we don't have that requirement, but if you go hunting out of state where there is one, you still need this card, don't you?
Yes. Let's say you had the opportunity to go to Alaska. Alaska does require Bowhunter education, and they do recognize and give full reciprocity to our program no matter what state the course was taken in. And reciprocity is really a large deal.
Oh, absolutely. We should also talk about the other classes you offer, crossbow classes. Now,
yes.
I didn't know this. I didn't know crossbows were legal to use in some form or another in every state except Oregon. Oregon does not allow them.
True.
But do most of these states require that you go through or basically have a crossbow hunter education card?
Not really. There is currently only one state that requires a separate certification, and that is Alaska. And they wanted to make sure that they place the requirements for crossbow directly in line with their Bowhunter Ed courses as well as their Hunter Ed courses. Now, every state does teach it except Oregon, but every state does have crossbow education either in their Bowhunter Ed programs or in their Hunter Ed programs. Of course, the depth depends on, in some regard, to the state, but once again, if you take an online crossbow ed course from us, Alaska will recognize that course no matter what state you took it in.
We should also mention the fact that in addition to these basic hunter education courses for bow hunters and crossbow hunters, you also have more advanced courses, and you also have, I understand, tree stand safety courses too.
Yes, we do. We have conducted tree stand safety in every Bowhunter Ed course that I can recall.
Well, we're going to have to leave it at that. Folks, if you want to find out more and take one of these great courses, just go to nbef.org. That's nbef.org for the National Bowhunter Education Foundation. Marilyn, thanks so much for sharing this with us today.
You bet. Thank you, John.
This portion of the show was brought to you by our friends at WorkSharp. They're the fine folks out of Ashland, Oregon, who make knife and tool sharpeners that you can use, whether you're hunting or fishing or camping or maybe in your shop, maybe in your kitchen, for all of the knives and tools you need sharpened every day when you work and play. WorkSharp tools can be found online at worksharptools.com, or you can find them in sporting goods stores and hardware stores all over our great nation. Just look for WorkSharp products to sharpen your knives and your tools, because nothing is worse than trying to get the job done right with a dull blade.
When you think of Henry Repeating Arms, you likely think of their American-made classic lever-action rifles and beautiful Golden Boy and Tribute Edition rifles. It doesn't stop there, though. Henry also has the Henry Long Ranger and lever-action Supreme models, as well as their big boy revolvers, the 9mm Homesteader carbine, and the venerable AR-7 survival rifle. Check out the entire line of Henry Repeating Arms firearms and find an authorized dealer near you at henryusa.com.
Looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook, because we've got it right here. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer an affordable platform to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting host John Kruse through his website at americaoutdoorsradio.com. That's americaoutdoorsradio.com. But hurry, if you wait too long, this big opportunity might just get away. That's americaoutdoorsradio.com.
A sharp blade makes short work of any project you have in the outdoors, in the kitchen, or in the shop. Hone your knives and tools with quality power and manual sharpeners from WorkSharp. Find out more at worksharptools.com.
You're back in with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Kruse. We've got Nate Reeves on the line. He's a state lead for Trout Unlimited in the state of Arizona. They've got a special trout down there. It's called the Apache Trout. It's not only the state trout for Arizona, but it's also a trout that's being removed from the endangered species list, something you don't hear about that often. Nate, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, John, for having me. And yeah, it's a pretty special time we're in right now. Being a sport fish, I think it's the first sport fish to ever be proposed for delisting. So yeah, we're really excited here, and so special to have our own kind of personal native trout here in Arizona.
I think most of our listeners are completely unaware of the Apache trout, what it looks like. Why don't you go ahead and describe it to our listeners?
Sure. I mean, it's a native trout to Arizona. It resides both on the White Mountain Apache Tribe Reservation and public lands. And it's goldish in color, kind of black spots, white tips on the fins, but it's been described as kind of a golden trout in this kind of historic record. When we see stringers full of 100 trout in old historic photos, the description was it's the golden trout. So yeah, I would say goldish in color, but lives in the headwaters and spawns in main stem. So it can range from, 5 or 6 inches up to, 14, 15, 16 inches we found in the main stem.
When people think of Arizona, they always think of the desert. But the fact of the matter is, in the White Mountains, it's anything but that. And the Apache tribe actually started taking steps to conserve the Apache trout way back in 1955. Tell us about this.
Yeah, the White Mountain Apache tribe, they realized that this fish was essentially being stressed, whether it was from grazing techniques, logging practices, overfishing, introduction of non-natives, and they took the first step to put in their own regulations on their own reservation to stop fishing for the Apache trout. And this was before the Endangered Species Act even. So they had the foresight to protect this fish before we as a government recognized it. So yeah, they've been a conservation partner, of course, from the beginning, and they've been the real leaders in the restoration of their species, of the Apache trout. And we've been trying to follow and keep up with them. But to be honest, we've been taking their lead because they played such a pivotal role in the preservation and restoration of this species.
The Apache trout has been listed as an endangered species. What's been done to recover this species?
Mostly, what's been done is habitat restoration, removal of non-native species within their historic range. And so on the public land side, at least the part of the side that Trout Unlimited works mostly on, we've worked with the Forest Service and the Game and Fish Department to help reintroduce native populations in the headwaters. So it involves backpacking fishing and restocking Apache trout back into their historic streams. We've done habitat restoration work. There's certain areas of the forest that, habitat wasn't what it was 100 years ago from a collection of reasons, but we've worked to do habitat restoration to open up more spawning and connection of habitat. I'd say the biggest goal that we're working to and the biggest threat that the Apache trout faces, on public lands at least, is connection of habitat. Right now we're seeing a lot of isolation in headwater streams. And what we're working towards is a metapopulation and connectivity of stream systems. So say there is a wildfire or historic drought or, something's happening, those fish can move out of those headwater sections into a main stem and then find refuge in another stream. And so what we're really working towards is connectivity on the landscape. And we've done that in a few cases, but there can always be more. So I think what's really going to help this fish into the future, especially with the future that we're looking in with getting a little drier in the southwest, a little warmer, is going to be connection of the landscape. And that's our main focus. Trout Unlimited's main focus, the Forest Service, Game and Fish Department, we're working towards that.
The restocking efforts, very old school. We're not talking by helicopter, by plane. We're talking about backpacking in 5-gallon buckets of trout, aren't we?
That's right, yep. We rely heavily on volunteers. It will be, just like you said, a 5-gallon bucket, almost filled completely to the top with water, a lid on top, of course, a little aerator pump for the trout. And, sometimes we're backpacking these trout 5 or 6 miles each way. So it's quite a dedication from our volunteers and from the people, but it's such a special fish, and people are so connected to this fish in the landscape that they're happy to do it.
Getting back to the landscape where these trout thrive, the White Mountains, I look at it and it reminds me of the Pacific Northwest and the Cascade Mountains. It's not what people think of as Arizona at all.
No, not at all. It's the White Mountains ranges anywhere from 7 to up to 11,000 feet. We have lush, wet meadows. It holds water. There's hundreds of perennial streams that hold water year-round. And it really is its kind of own pocket of refuge in the state of Arizona. Throughout the rest of the state, it's really dependent on rainfall, to produce forage and that for big game animals. But in the White Mountains, it's pretty much water year-round and can sustain drought. And so, we see that as our main focus for TU's project work is in that White Mountains, because we know if we dump a couple $1 million into a project that, our climate models show that there's going to be water there for the next 100 years. We're not worried about the impacts of climate change as much in those sort of areas as we are, maybe other parts of Arizona. So the special place, and Arizona as a whole is so special in its diversity. I think we have 8 to 10 different binomes, so different types of elevation or different types of habitat, spanning different elevation ranges across the whole state. So our diversity of species and ecosystems in the state is really unique and I think one of a kind.
The trout is being proposed for delisting. Does that mean you can actually fish for them now or not?
Yeah, so they're being proposed for delisting. So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service made the announcement, has solicited comments, and this was back in, I believe October that they solicited comments. We submitted comments in support of the delisting as well as of a lot of other groups. But yes, you currently can fish for them. There's I think roughly 5 streams on public lands within the Apache Sickaries National Forest that you can fish for these trout. And as we work towards opening up more streams by conducting more restoration projects, that number will just grow. We're finding the more habitat restoration that we can do, the better these populations are thriving. And of course, the better the populations do, then we can recommend those streams for open to angling. So yeah, we're definitely making an impact on the landscape, and it's something that someone can travel to and fish for, and they can count it towards their native and wild trout challenge, and get a coin for it essentially.
Last but not least, Nate, you're a bit of a movie star. You actually are in a film about the restoration of the Apache trout. Where can folks see this documentary film?
Yeah, John, if they want to learn more about Apache Trout and see the film, it's actually on one of Trout Unlimited's landing pages. That's going to be prioritywaters.tu.org/resilience. And Resilience is the name of the video that we've created. And it's a really great video that kind of overviews the historic story of the Apache Trout. We have a lot of interviews with the White Mountain Apache tribe, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Game and Fish, and showcasing everyone banding together and working towards one common goal of restoring the species that has been so resilient through the decades.
I couldn't agree more. Definitely worth a watch. Again, the website, prioritywaters.tu.org/resilience. Check it out. Learn more about the Apache Trout. And if you are into cold water fisheries conservation, definitely go to tu.org because Trout Unlimited is all about that. Nate, thanks so much for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
I appreciate it, John. Thanks for having me.
When you buy a sharpener from WorkSharp, you aren't purchasing a product, you're making a very good long-term investment. Whether you're buying a knife sharpener for the field, a knife and tool sharpener for the shop, or have a knife sharpener on the kitchen counter, you'll find they are durable and will do the job of sharpening your knives and tools for years to come. Make sharp happen with WorkSharp at a sporting goods store near you and at WorkSharpTools.com.
Modular. When it comes to getting the most out of your Camp Chef 2-burner propane stove, that's the word to use. Sure, you can cook directly over either burner with a pot or pan, but how about putting a grill box on to serve up burgers, steaks, or chicken? Put a griddle on to cook up your breakfast. Pizza? We've got that covered too with our pizza oven that you place right over the stove. Whatever you're cooking while camping or at home, Camp Chef has got you covered. Find out more about modular stove accessories at campchef.com today.
You're back in with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Kruse. We've got Phil Borgelli on the line. He's a shotguns editor for Field & Stream, and he just wrote an article about the best shotgun loads for 2024. Phil, great to have you back on the air. It's been a while.
Thank you for having me. It has been too long.
Yes, it has. So when we're talking about the best shotgun loads, we're talking specifically about duck hunting loads. And before we get to the best ones, I've got to ask you, in terms of pricing, kind of like eggs and bread, I guess, but I mean, is it just inflation or is something else at play here?
Well, there's inflation and there is, shotgun shells, we had that. The COVID drove the price of everything ammunition related up because there was a run on it. And if you notice, it never really came back down again. So there was that. There's a war in Ukraine going on that uses a lot of, it takes a lot of gunpowder to shoot one artillery shell. So there's that. The thing you can do is learn to shoot straight so you don't go through too many shells, I guess.
Unfortunately,
that's how I look at it.
That's never been my forte. I've always bought the like the Kent Steel or the low-grade Winchester brands or Federal brands that you used to be able to get for like $12 a box, but even those are like $22, $24 a box now.
Yep, they are. I tell myself it's a small portion of the price of the hunt, but so it's important to buy the right stuff, I guess.
Well, let's talk about the right stuff because you tested several duck loads for 2024 and you came out with 3 different categories, the best stacked, the best budget, and the best premium. And with inflation on my mind at least, let's start off with the best budget duck shell, the Boss Steel Reserve. Tell us more about it. Boss
is known for bismuth and for high-end TSS turkey loads, and the steel stuff is new for them this year. And I shot at the pattern board. I really liked it. I have not yet shot it at a duck, but I will later this season. I am sure it will work. It comes in only 2 sizes, 1s for geese and 3s for ducks, which are great choices. And the pellets are copper-plated, and copper plating does nothing for hardness, especially not with steel, but it does add some lubricity. It gets the shells flowing through a choke better. That could be one of the reasons the patterns are good. And then also in these particular shells, Boss has developed a biopolymer wad that degrades.
Oh.
And this is going to be a big deal in the next several years because I really think that plastic will be the new lead. It already is in some places. And so that's a good thing, too, if we can get the plastic out of the environment, out of the stomachs of seabirds and turtles and other things, and just concentrate on shooting ducks and not killing collateral wildlife. So there's that. But I was impressed with it. It comes in, I think, 1 ounce and 3/8, 1 ounce and 1/8, and then in a 7/8 ounce 20 gauge load. And they are, Boss does sell 20 rounds a box, so the price is a little higher per shell than $24 a box would suggest, but it's still affordable stuff that shoots very well.
It's funny you mentioned the biodegradable portion when it comes to the shotgun wad. Do you see us ever going back to paper shotgun shells like our fathers hunted with back in the day?
Yes. I mean, the hulls, maybe not so much, because you can pick up your hulls. That's not that hard. I actually have shot some prototype paper wad steel shells, which work very well in the smaller sizes. Whether that technology is scalable up for duck loads, I don't know. We'll find out. There are some other wad technologies that can also leave no trace at all. Boss uses a ground walnut shell buffer, for instance, in their ammunition, and a friend of mine has a patent on a shell that uses nothing but ground walnut shells, no wad at all. So there are technologies out there. Some of them are too biodegradable. They can come apart in the shell and in storage, but we'll get there. And that may, that's another thing that will drive the price of ammunition up, because that's all research and technology that somebody's got to pay for. But yes, it is probably in our future.
All right. Moving on from the best budget, we're talking $26 a box here, to the best stacked load, Federals, Ultra Steel,
Right.
12 gauge, 2 and 4 shot size, retails for about $43 a box. What's the advantage of using stacked loads?
It's the thing, right? It's the end thing right now. There's a couple of advantages, and stacked loads not more than a few years, but they've been around before, and they're back. And there's two different kinds, and in this case, of the steel kind, it can be the case that when you stack larger pellets on top of smaller pellets, those larger pellets are going to do the work of fighting the air resistance, which happens in all shot shells, but it happens better with the bigger pellets. And the smaller pellets are drafting behind them, and so you can achieve, and I've seen it on the pattern board, the same number of hits. Say a load of like BBs and 2s might put the same number of hits as a load of all 2s would, of the same weight, in a 30-inch circle, which means you're getting more energy because you've got some bigger pellets in there too, in your pattern, and theoretically doing a more lethal job on ducks and geese. So that's one advantage. The other way to do it, and there's, I think one of the other shells in the test was the Apex S3 TSS blend, which mixes a little bit of TSS, which is very expensive stuff, with steel, and then you get quite a few more hits on target, even just with that 1/4 ounce of small TSS shot, which is ballistically more or less the equivalent of the larger steel, without having to pay for all TSS, which is absurdly high-priced stuff. Those are the couple of advantages. One thing I always try to caution people is some people think you get two sizes of shot. That means you've got one for long range and one for medium range, and that's not the idea. The idea is you work with the maximum range of the smaller shot, and you take the extra energy in the pattern as for a harder hitting shell.
And for our listeners who don't know what TSS is, could you explain that?
TSS is tungsten super shot, which is the very densest grade tungsten pellet you can buy. It's like 1.5 times denser than lead, and that gives it a lot of retained energy downrange, and it means you can shoot much smaller pellets and still have adequate penetration, adequate energy to kill a bird, so that you can shoot, turkey hunters shoot, and I do have shoot pellets as smaller than 9s at turkeys, and you can buy these in duck loads as well. And so if you want to shoot a small gauge gun, say a 28 or a 410 or whatever, you can load it with TSS and have a shell that's got enough pellet count in it, because you can load these small pellets to actually be an effective waterfowl load. And if you want to load it in a 12 gauge, you can shoot things a long way away.
And that brings us to the best premium ammo from Winchester. Winchester's Last Call, which is TSS ammunition, and it does go all the way down from 12 gauge to 20 to 28 gauge and even 410.
Right, and I think the price, I can't remember right off the top of my head, but I think it's approaching $10 a shell, I believe, which is a lot. It's more than I've got. And so it's something just for a very, very special occasion. I am fortunate in that manufacturers send me ammunition, so I don't have to buy it all. And what I will do with these is put them in my bag, and if I need to shoot a cripple that's swimming away at 70 yards, I'll shoot it with TSS 9s. That's not everybody can do that, but I'm lucky enough that I can. It is effective stuff. I think it's really, honestly, unless you're absolutely made of money, there's, bismuth is a good alternative. The blends, if you want to shoot those, are a good alternative. But it's fun stuff to talk about and write about and fun to pattern and everything else. But for most of us, this is not a practical duck load. It's a practical turkey load because you're shooting one or two a year.
But you're right. It's a little bit out of my price range as well, and the boxes are only 10 shells on top of that. So keep that in mind, folks.
Yeah, so you go to the plug on your shotgun 3 times, and you spent like $90.
Yes, and I'm not that good of a shot. So I'll be sticking with the Boss budget load. Thank you very much. But folks, if you want to find out more, go to fieldandstream.com and check out the best duck loads of 2024, expert tested by none other than Phil Bourgeli. Phil, always a pleasure to have you on America Outdoors Radio.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
Sticking with firearms and thinking of Christmas already, I've got a great idea for you, and that would be giving somebody a personalized Henry Golden Boy or Golden Boy Silver rifle. Here's what you do. You just buy a Golden Boy or Golden Boy Silver rifle from your local Henry dealer. Think up 20 words that you would like to leave with a loved one for life. Then you purchase a personalized Golden Boy or personalized Golden Boy Silver receiver cover. They'll engrave the message for you at Henry Repeating Arms, make sure it looks great, and you just replace that standard receiver cover with your new personalized one. No gunsmith needed, just 5 screws holds it together. Box that rifle back up, wrap it for Christmas, and wait for Christmas morning to give somebody a very special gift they will remember the rest of their life. Find out more at henryusa.com. That's henryusa.com. Purchase the best Christmas gift ever today. This portion of the show is brought to you every week by our friends at Henry Repeating Arms. It's a company I really get behind because they make all of their firearms right here in America. Now, Henry Repeating Arms is known for their classic, beautiful lever-action rifles, and they come in all sorts of different calibers. Everything from 22 caliber up to 30-30s and 357s and 45-70s and a whole lot more. They also have recently come out with revolvers and a 9mm carbine that's great for self-defense or to have out on the ranch. And they've even got some single-shot and lever-action shotguns, too. All of their firearms are rugged, reliable, accurate right out of the box, and they all come with a lifetime satisfaction guarantee. So go to henryusa.com, check out the lineup of products they have available, look for an authorized dealer near you, and don't forget to ask for your free decals and catalog while you're there. The website again, henryusa.com.
Explore the Dalles, the hub where discovery and history come together. Whether the Northwest is your home or you're on an adventure, the Dalles welcomes you. Just 80 miles east of Portland is the perfect year-round escape with a community that cares about you. 300 days of sun, breathtaking outdoor recreation, and a downtown full of the unexpected. Oh, and the rich history that began before the Oregon Trail. Start planning at explorethedalles.com.
Are you looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook because we've got it right here for you. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer affordable platforms to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting John Kruse through his website at AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. That's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. Hurry, though. If you wait too long, the big opportunity might just get away. AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com.
You know, a lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something that saves you money. But what if you could get both? Why not? Especially when it comes to healthcare, and that is MediShare. You get both. Many families save $500 a month with MediShare, and that's huge, but it's also true that people wind up way more satisfied, too. And we know this from research of members. There's a lot they like about MediShare, but especially they love being part of something they believe in. And MediShare works, too. It has for more than 30 years. There are hundreds of thousands of members who love having telehealth if they need it. They love the huge PPO network. So, yeah, really, you could save a ton and like it better Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or you're part of the gig economy or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price in 2 minutes. Here's the number. Call 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
You're back in with America Outdoors Radio. Our next stop is Springfield, Missouri. That's where we are meeting up with John Bledsoe. He is the founder of Coangler. It is an app that you can download. It's also a website, coangler.com. And if you want to go fishing within 100 miles of where you live, you can go ahead and ask to go fishing or offer somebody to go fishing with you. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, John. Great to be here.
Tell me a little bit more about the concept of Coangler.
Yeah, simply put, Coangler is an app designed to connect people to go fish together. And I came up with this idea actually fishing by myself on my own boat. It was a beautiful October afternoon, almost 4 years ago. I happened to look at my empty seat on my boat and thought to myself, why didn't I bring somebody with me? Then the wheels started turning, and I thought to myself, why isn't there something out there that does just that, like an app or social network designed specifically to connect people to go fish together where they could offer and request trips, share costs for the trip, share techniques, but most of all, share each other's company and have some fun in the outdoors using fishing as the avenue to connect people together. That's a journey that started almost 4 years ago, and since then we've launched the app. We've connected a little over 100 people to go fish together, and we've had over almost 500 trips planned through the app, and we have about 1,500 users in 45 states, with about half of those being based here in the Ozarks.
One thing I noticed that I think is great is the cost to sign up. Just, again, go to Google Play or Apple and just look for Coangler, and you'll get right there. There's no cost at all to download the app.
Right. This is a 100% free app for now. Eventually we are going to implement a subscription model for the co-anglers trying to join trips, but we feel like this is a tool that anglers need, and so we're not trying to put any barriers in front of people. It's already as expensive as it can be getting out there on the water, so that's one of the main focuses, to try and make fishing more accessible and also affordable for people out there, to chip in some gas money and chip in some money towards bait, try and alleviate some of those barriers that keep people from going out as often.
It's funny you mentioned that. I've been a co-angler in several tournaments, and I really wanted to do the right thing. And so I was looking up co-angler etiquette, and one of the biggest things was offering gas money. Now, 5-6 years ago, it's like, if you offer $40, you're good. Now it's more like, you probably better offer $50-$60 at this time to offset the fuel expenses, because gas has just gotten pricey.
Yeah, you start adding up, filling up the boat, filling up the truck, and the distance, to the lake or the river where you're fishing, it adds up very quickly. It's hard to go fishing for under $150 these days, just counting the gas money.
Well, I think it's great that this exists so people can go ahead and share in the costs. But let's talk a little bit about this. So there's two categories of anglers here. Number one are the ones that have a boat and they're offering trips. And so I'm on your website right now, and I'm looking at a guy named Frank, and he's got a Princecraft, looks like a 16.5-foot boat with 2 downriggers and a fish finder, and he's offering a trip to go striper fishing in Pennsylvania. I guess what happens is you just go ahead and contact him and say, I want to go fishing with you, and I'll share this much in costs.
Yeah, so, that post that's on the main feed, you're able to see all those trip details, the day and time and duration, and you also have the ability to comment on that trip. If you're curious, about certain details that maybe aren't listed in the trip, you can comment, and that owner, Frank, of that trip will get a notification, be able to communicate with you. And then if it looks like a trip that you might feel like participating in, you can send a request to join, and then Frank will receive that notification that there's an angler that'd like to join him on his trip. He can review your profile or your ratings and reviews, make sure you're somebody that, he wouldn't mind taking out with him. Then he'll either approve or deny that. And from that point forward, it takes you to a private messenger where you can message back and forth and work out any specific details with regards to, exactly what time you need to be at the boat ramp, or, potentially, if there's snacks or drinks or anything like that needs to be considered, and who's bringing what equipment. But just trying to create a way for people to kind of share in the experience together. But it's also not just for people with boats that offer trips. We've had kayak anglers offer trips that maybe just need help shuttling or, want to go out and fish with somebody on a float trip. And we've also had anglers that have posted wading trips, fishing from the bank as well. So being able to offer a trip also includes those bank fishermen and kayak anglers and not just people with a boat.
All right. Well, getting back to the anglers here. So we just talked about the anglers that are offering trips. You got anglers that want to go on trips too. So there's a guy named Jonathan. He lives in Georgia, and he's willing to offer up to $150 to go on a trip. And it sounds like he likes to go bass fishing, and he has a little bio there and is willing to go anytime between now and December 31st. So
yeah.
If you're an angler in Georgia, do you basically reach out and push the provide trip, and then you go ahead and start talking about the details from there?
Right. One of the things we learned early on is, when we first launched our website app was people didn't necessarily want to offer trips, but wanted to request trips. They wanted to kind of frame what type of trip they were looking for and trying to see if somebody in their neighborhood might be willing to provide that trip. And so that's a common thing that people post on the app. Whether you're wanting to go striper fishing or bass fishing, you can actually create that general trip request, and then people in your area get notified. And also, as you noted, you can set that shared cost feature saying, you're willing to chip in a significant amount of money towards the expenses of the trip. And it's just a great way for people that want to go fishing that may not have the means, have the ability to, put content on the app and let people know that, they're out there and they'd love to get out there and enjoy a day on the water.
A lot of folks, myself included, would think, I don't know this guy. I mean, is, he really what he cracks up to be, or am I going to invite him on the back of my bass boat and he's going to spit sunflower seeds all day and cast right in front of me from the back of the boat where I'm trying to cast? How do you go ahead and figure out if this person's a good person to fish with or not?
Yeah. Well, one of the things app, and it's increasing in adoption right now, which is our ratings and review. And, so trying to increase that confidence in others, making sure also that they've got their profile picture completed, their profiles completed with their biography. And so you can kind of judge, just based on their profile, if this is somebody, reasonable, as well as, if you have a trip confirmed with them, the communication and making sure that people are showing, respect for each other's equipment and just being cognizant of the fact that we don't exactly know each other, but that's really the barrier that we're trying to break down is, get people out there to meet new people, and using fishing is the way to do that, because I feel like that, being on a fishing boat is one of the most effective pieces of common ground that you can find in this world. And very, very little. I've talked to guides, several guides throughout this journey, and the amount of bad actors and bad examples that these professional guides have had, over the course of their careers has been very, very few. So there's something about, getting out on the water with people that kind of creates a naturally positive environment for the most part. But we are trying to be at least cognizant that there are people out there that may not be somebody that you want to have as a return angler on your boat. So the ability to create, ratings and reviews, that way letting other people know in the community that, you may or may not want to fish with this person, but as the app continues to grow and more people go fish together, those bad actors will continue to kind of weed themselves out too. But that's one of the best, that gives me confidence about creating an app like Coangler is 99% of the people you meet that love the outdoors, that fish, that hunt, they're usually just the salt of the earth type people. And so that's a really good piece that gives me a lot of confidence, in supporting and creating an avenue. Because so far, we've connected close to 100 people to go fish together, and we've had absolutely no negative experiences thus far, and which is really encouraging, just starting out being an app that's kind of bringing a brand new concept to people. And that's one of their first hesitations is, well, this is somebody that I don't know, but you'd be surprised how many great people meet each other through just fishing alone, whether it's on social networks or, fishing tournaments, and just giving people an opportunity to form, potentially lifelong friendships.
Absolutely. I think this is a great idea. I've got to ask, right now, you're not making any money off this at all. I presume once you have a subscription model, you'll finally start getting a little bit of income for your efforts?
Yeah, that's going to be one of the most challenging parts is how do we keep the lights on with this company? And so eventually we are going to, put in, a subscription-based model. So there will be a paywall in between the trip confirmation process. So the co-anglers will need to be paid subscribers. And we're tentatively planning on unrolling that in 2026 of next year. And it's going to be a $5 a month, cancel anytime, or $45 a year paid annually to try and incentivize people to help support, the platform that we're building.
Well, I love what you're doing, and I look forward to continued growth for Coangler. And folks, if you want to go fishing with someone, whether you own a boat or want to take somebody fishing, or whether you want to go fishing with somebody who has a boat, or just learn from somebody, or just have a great time with somebody out in the water, the website to go to is coangler.com. That's coangler.com. Or just go to your app page, wherever you download your apps, and just look for Coangler LLC and sign up today. Right now, it's absolutely free to do so. So sign up and go fishing. John, thanks for what you're doing, and thanks for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thank you very much, John. Glad to be here.
And on that note, it is time to go. If you didn't hear the whole show, just look for America Outdoors Radio wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll have it uploaded in a few days. Until next time, be healthy, be blessed, and do remember this. It is your country and your outdoors, so get out there and enjoy it.